All right, welcome back. It is for March, and this is video number 27 of ATKID Revisited. And we are going to go over some more things. I'm going to go into some of these documents here, these incorporations with the Secretary of State. We're going to pull up some of that. But first, I wanted to kind of follow up on some things that I was thinking about but didn't get the chance to go over in my last video. So I kind of jotted them down here. So I'm sure some people that are listening that can put two and two together can kind of figure out that my mom is, my family is bumping up awfully damn close to Wayne Williams, Michael Davis, and this whole thing that's going on in Atlanta. And of course, I was what, 6 years old to 15, 16 years old when all this stuff was going down. And, you think about when you're a kid, just think about when you were that age, how much aware you were of things that were going on. You were kind of in your own world, and that's just the way it is. You don't become aware of things around you that much until you get older. And you're more worried about, trying to pass your classes. And I was more worried about trying to pass math and girls and trying to write and shit like that. So, and then when I wasn't doing that at school, at home, I was usually involved with my friends, and we were all about Star Wars and sci-fi and playing army and running around in the woods and riding our bikes and riding our go-karts and all that kind of all that kind of skateboards, all those kinds of things. So you just take it for granted that your parents are on the up and up. Okay, and it's been a real enlightening and harsh discovery to go through this process, because I've discovered a lot of things that I really didn't want to know. Okay, about my my parents. Especially my mom, because my mom saved me. Okay, I if I had stayed with my dad, I would have been a very bitter, after being beaten and beaten and beaten and beaten for years, um, and abused. I probably would have ended up, in jail, racist, very violent, all that. And so my mom saved me, and I had a little tender spot in my heart for my mom all my life. It's just at the end when she got sick and she realized her life was coming to an end, that the niceness, the southern charm wore off, and the real meanness got revealed. And we basically had it out about my stepdad, that he was mentally gone by then, couldn't take care of himself, could barely do anything without her help. And maybe that had something to do with wearing on her, and maybe her sickness. And also, I'll just tell you right now, she was on Oxycontin. Um, all the doctors knew she was going to die. She knew she was going to die. It was just a matter of hanging on. And I think she just hung on for stubbornness, just anger, but she was addicted to Oxycontin at the end. So in the end, I had my once loving, kind, sweet mom that saved me from abuse from my biological father, and there was nothing she wouldn't have done to help me. Okay, to this very bitter, angry, Oxycontin addicted, abusive person abusing my former stepdad, who's now my adopted dad. And she didn't like that. I went down there to help them because she got sick and he got sick, and none of them could work, and they were couldn't make it off Social Security. And she didn't like it that I was standing up to her. Even though my God, I was probably 38, 39 years old, and she just didn't like that I was standing up to her and saying, "Look, you need to stop yelling at dad all the time, 24 hours a day. He's on this medication that's making him loopy, and you yelling at him makes him even more loopy, and he forgets that if he's taking his medication, then he takes double medication, and then you're on fucking Oxycontin, addicted to that, and that makes your mood swings up and down, and you know it's intolerable. You're destroying him, and I know you're going to die, and I've accepted that, but you don't have to drag us all down with you." She didn't like that. Because in her mind, just like in my brother's minds, my two brothers, and everyone's mind in my family, I was always little Dino, the little boy that ran around dirty and didn't take a bath and didn't brush his teeth and could barely speak and could barely write, quite illiterate. And no one could ever see me as an adult to their fault, and especially as their equal intellectually. So that was a big problem for her. And that was 2005, and I think she died 5 years later. Not talking to me again since that. And my dad and I would talk, because there'd be moments where my dad was back to where he was before, where he knew where he was at, he knew who he was, and he remembered me. And then there were days that, you know, when she was gone, they put him in a elderly care home, and you know, they, my dad, who was raised, in the racist South near Baxley, Georgia, was living in an elderly care home, being taken care of with this older black lady and her family. They're all black, in Douglas, Georgia, or Valdosta, Georgia, somewhere around there. And he would wake up and realize that he was living with a bunch of black people, and he would run away. They would find him. The police would have to go find him down the street. Douglas is not a very big town, and he would be looking for my mom or looking for me. And so there were days he didn't know where he was at, didn't know who he was. And he would set, he'd throw his food on the floor across on against the wall, and there was nothing I could do about it. 'Cause I'm in Israel. They'd call me, and I'd say, well, my uncle would call me, and I'd say, well, do whatever you think is best. You need any money? You need more money, or what? What can I do? Can you come visit him? Well, yeah, but what good is that going to do? You know. So I'd come visit him for a couple of days, and I'd go back, and then he'd be fine, and then a month or two later, he'd be back in the same circumstance. Now, I believe that, you know, they say he had Alzheimer's, but I believe that, my grandfather, his father, his biological father, had mental problems, and back in the 50s, they used to put him in shock treatment and put him on medication. And so I believe it extended from that, but also had something to do with the alcoholism, and also probably had something to do with the things that he had done and didn't want to remember. And the same thing with my mom, that my mom was involved in things that she didn't want to remember, and that she could put across her southern charm for a while until the pain became so great. And what leukemia does basically, it starves you of oxygen. Your red blood cell count goes down, the oxygen's not getting to the brain, and you stop functioning as a human being and intellectual and start functioning as just an animal. And then there was a lot of pain involved in that because it's an overabundance of white blood cells, and they get stuck in your joints, your groin, under your arm. What eventually kills people with leukemia is they'll have a stroke because, or a heart attack, because the white blood cells will pack themselves and block off the flow of the blood flow. So, but again, I think a lot of her pain also had to do with things that she had done and couldn't get away from. You know, you can get away from people, but you can't get away from yourself. This is why I think the number one reason why people commit suicide is that they can't handle the thoughts that'll never go away in their head. They can escape the people that abuse them, they can escape the situations that they didn't like, but they can never escape. The brain is always there. The memories are always there, no matter how much counseling. I've had a lot of counseling. I've talked a lot of things, but there's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't think about the painful things that happened to me in my life. And my only consolation is that I'm alive. I made it. I'm taking care of others, and it's my duty to stay alive and take care of those people and to not give in to depression and other things like that. My mom was a very angry, stubborn person. She was damn well determined to outlive everybody that treated her bad. And the reason I'm saying this is because it's painful for me to think about, knowing what I know now, that maybe my mom and my dad were involved in things. I'm not saying the Atlanta child murders, but other things. God knows what that I don't know about. Because there were times my brother and my sister left home when they lived with us for about 4 years. And then they left home in 79, summer of 79. My brother went off to college. My sister went off to college. My sister graduated a year early. She was really smart. And it was me there for the next 5 years with my mom and dad. And then right after that, my brother and sister left. My dad got in trouble at the end of the summer at Rogers Bridge Company for embezzling money. Now, they never talked about that, but that's what my sister told me. And that's when I've been able to research and find out. I was able to find a court record from Shepherd Construction, um, that was going after my dad with the lien on our house. That's why we had to move out of the house. And as soon as they were just waiting for me to graduate so they could sell the house and pay off Shepherd Construction, which is owned by relatives of my dad. That's why he didn't go to jail. But after the 79, 80, 79, 80, 81 is when all the problems started, right in the middle of the Atlanta child murders. My dad lost his job and became an alcoholic. Well, he'd always been an alcoholic. I remember him telling me that the only reason he got out of the Vietnam War because he was what, born in 49, and he wasn't doing that great in college. He should have been drafted, he said, but his friends and him crashed on a bridge down in Bainbridge or Baxley, Georgia, and the car flipped over and landed on the embankment of a river there. His friend got killed. He got thrown from the car and landed on a tree stump and fucked up his back. And that's the only reason he didn't get drafted. He said, I'd already got my draft notice. We went out to celebrate. I got drunk. My friend and I got drunk and we rolled that car over that bridge, off the bridge, and crashed into the river, the riverbank. And my friend died in that car, and I at 20 years old, and me at 20 years old. But it got me out of the Vietnam War. And there's a little bit of, I'm sure there's a little bit of regret and guilt about that too. But others went to die in that war, and you got off. But I think there's the thing with Rogers Bridge Company and other things. And then my parents would go off for weeks at a time on business trips to other cities: Chicago, Cleveland, New York, Los Angeles. My mom told me about a business trip they went once in the mid 80s to Tucson. And she was sitting in this pool in Tucson, really nice hotel. And this young, well built black male with long, curly, dreadlock hair came out and got in the pool and swam across the pool, breaststroke, and left a whole oily sheen behind him in the pool. And she was like, well, damn, I was going to say how good looking that man was until he left that oily sheen in the pool, and they had to clean the whole damn pool after he was gone. And she went and complained to the manager, and the manager proceeded to tell her that that guy can swim all damn day in the pool as far as they're concerned. They rented the penthouse suite for them because that guy was a singer. He was Nilly Vanilli. Remember Nilly Vanilli, the German guys, the two black German guys that got caught? They were lip syncing. Well, at that time, they thought they were really singers. And but she's like, "Who the hell is Lily Vanilli?" She came back and told me, this guy was swimming in the pool and left this big oil sheen, and the manager said he could do with whatever he wanted because he was Lily Vanilli. Who gives a shit who Lily Vanilli is?" And I'm, Mom, Lily Vanilli, wow. But anyway, so again, I have to think about, was it an accident? It had to have been an accident, right? Pure coincidence that my sister was working at the gift shop at the Hilton where my mom worked, the car rental place, and the person who owned the shop, her and her husband also owned the Dipper Dans at Stewart Lakewood. It's just pure coincidence, right, that I ended up at that Dipper Dans because I didn't have a job because my dad got fired from Rogers Bridge Company. It's just pure coincidence that that same Dipper Dans was at ground zero across the street from the recording studio where Wayne Williams would bring the kids, and across the street from the pornography theater, studio, whatever, bookshop that Wayne Williams was a security guard and would take kids into. And it's just pure coincidence that that same pornography place was owned by Michael Thieves and the Gambino family. Even though Michael Thieves was in prison, it was still being run by Jimmy Jen and his associates, of which Wayne Williams was a security guard there. And it's just pure coincidence that my mom happened to be I'll go over the timeline again. 72 to 74, she's working at the Sound Pit with Michael Thieves. 74, Michael Thieves goes to prison. My mom gets a job at the Omni International. She meets my dad somehow. Oh, I guess her roommate was dating my dad. And she ran off and he got drunk and passed out on her front door. And then 6 months later, they're married in April of 1975. And it's pure coincidence that that summer of 79, after my dad lost his job, my mom got a job with Spirit Rent a Car, which became Jelco Rent a Car, which is right up there. Their home base in Atlanta was right up in Buckhead, right across the street from Maple, where the attorney of Wayne Williams had his main office. And the former girlfriend, my mom's competition, Patricia McLean, was literally 3 blocks away from where my mom was working. If my mom went out to the edge of the parking lot and looked down Maple Street, she could see Patricia McLean's office there. And it's just pure coincidence that my mom, from 74 to probably 80, 81, was working as a security guard at the Omni International and would leave me in the game room where Wayne Williams would come and pass out his flyers. And many of the kids that disappeared were last seen in that game room. It's got to be pure coincidence, right? I mean, my God, it can't just be that Atlanta's that fucking small of a town, right? That I'm running into Wayne Williams at Dipper Dams. I'm running into Wayne Williams at the gold mine. I'm running into Wayne Williams in Buckhead when I go up there and wash cars at Jelco on Saturday weekends before I can make a little cash money before I go to Lenox Square, right? And it's just coincidence that my mom is, working at the Hilton. With Spirit Rent a Car and Joker Rent a Car, and it's right down the street from Hotlanta Records. And it's just coincidence that there's a Dino on the registry for the incorporation of Hotlanta Records. And it's just coincidence that my mom was working at the Sound Pit Apogee Studios, where Wayne Williams would be bringing the kids years later, like 4 years later, 76 to 81. It's all coincidence, right? I mean, my God, folks. Did my mom know Wayne Williams? Did my mom know that Wayne Williams was a security guard at that porn shop at Stewart Lakewood? Did my mom know, was Wayne Williams a fucking security guard at Omni International? Was Wayne Williams working for Confidential Security Agency, whose location, their headquarters, was right there off of Piedmont, literally 2 buildings down from the attorney of Michael Thieves and Wayne Williams, Ed Garland? Is it a coincidence that the same security agency that my mom worked for, most likely worked for, the owner of that agency was good friends with Ed Garland? It's just too many fucking coincidences, okay? Is it coincidence that during the entire Atlanta child murders, my dad, starting at the end of the summer of 79, was a raging alcoholic till 1982 when Wayne Williams went to jail? Is it, I mean, literally, folks, my dad drank all the time. He never drank until he got the end of summer of 1979 when the murders started and he got fired. Is it coincidence that he would take me fishing down by the Chattahoochee near that bridge off of Fairburn Road where two or three of the bodies were found? We were on the south side of the bridge. The bodies were found on the northwest side of the bridge, and the northeast side of the bridge, on the Douglas County side and on the Fulton County side. And literally, we had been there that weekend, and then a few days later, they found two of the bodies. Is it all coincidence, folks? What am I saying here? I don't know what I'm saying. I don't really want to. I don't know if I really want to know what I'm saying. Is it coincidence that following the capture of Wayne Williams and the arrest of Wayne Williams in July of 1981, my mom ended up 2 months, maybe even three, in a mental hospital on severe suicide watch and antidepressant medication? What's happening here? What did I see that I don't know what I don't know what I saw. But when I put together what happened in my family and what I remember seeing with what I know factually happened, according to documents and according to newspaper accounts, it's pretty fucking sketchy. Now, do I think my mom and my dad killed those kids? No, I don't think so. Were involved? I don't think so. You remember I said there are many instances where children, there's no way they were in those rivers for weeks on end. There's no way their body was barely decomposed and they had been gone for 6 months. Earl Terrell, his body was decomposing, not skeletalized after 28 days, but decomposing when they found his body in what, January? And I saw him the end of July. Where was Earl Terrell for 6 months, for 5 months? Where's Yusuf Bell for 3 weeks? His body wasn't skeletalized, even though he was gone for what, 21 days? Where was his body? It's my contention that Wayne Williams was holding some of these kids hostage, chained up someplace, maybe having others abuse them. Somebody had to be watching them, right? Now, my mom and dad were working all the time, right? Right? That's what they told me. They were gone all the time. They leave early in the morning, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Both of them. Sometimes wouldn't come back till 11 at night. Most of the time, 6, 7 at night. What were they doing? And then as they got older, you know, after 82, well, actually after, I think the beginning of 83, my mom didn't work at Joko anymore. But I think she still did security. So, so my mom had a 22 also. I remember because I found she had, and you know what I knew? Do you know how I know what a police slap looked like? Because my mom had a police slap. She had a black utility belt. I called it her Batman belt. And on there, she had a police slap, a holster for a 22 gun, and little places to put the 22 bullets. And she'd have some 22 bullets left over. And I would, look at it and try to figure out, could that really kill anybody? And I had a pellet gun. And my pellet gun, the pellet was just a little bit smaller than a 22 round. And my friend and I would debate about that. Well, what's the difference? Well, a 22's got gunpowder. Your pellet gun's just got air. So I don't know. Again, I don't think my mom or my dad killed any of the Atlanta children. But did they know about it? Only they know. I don't know. I don't want to believe that they were involved, but did my mom work with Wayne Williams as a security guard at the Omni International? Was my mom still in contact with Jimmy Jim and maybe turned Wayne Williams on to the Sound Pit studio where she used to work? Was my mom ever in contact with Ed Garland, attorney for Michael Thieves? Did my mom know Mary Welcome? There were people, men in suits, FBI agents, they had to have been, that would come to the door, take off their mirrored sunglasses. Hi, can I help you? I would say. Yes. They would flash some kind of a government ID. Of course, when you're 13, you don't know shit. Is your mom, Nancy Pafford, here? And I would say no or yes or whatever. Sometimes my mom would have me answer the door and tell them she wasn't here, even though I knew she was upstairs. Oh, she's not here, but um, I can take a number. Like, you have a card? And they would leave a card. And this happened at least 2 or 3 times a year from 78 to at least 82. But then after 82, it all dropped off. So you remember how I said that Wayne was smart, but he wasn't that smart. I don't think Wayne, and even some of the defenders of Wayne, will tell you that they don't believe Wayne was smart enough to carry out this whole fiasco of killing 29 people, adults and children, and covering it up. That he had to have had help. And now, knowing what I know and researching more and more, I think they're probably right. That Wayne does seem to be more of the go getter, the acquirer, like Ghislaine Maxwell. She would go out and get the kids for Jeffrey Epstein, but does Jeffrey Epstein really seem like the leader type? Everyone was around him, but was he really the one pulling the strings? Or was it this Wexler guy, or maybe someone else, maybe one of these Saudi guys, these Arab guys. Oh, another question I asked about Jeffrey Epstein is how could a registered sex offender for 14 years? Well, okay, he got convicted in what, 2008? A registered felony convicted sex offender travel in and out of countries around the world, especially like Canada and Australia, where anyone with a felony conviction could be barred and denied a visa. And they have nowadays, I don't know about back in 2019, because when he got arrested, he was on his way back from France, and he got arrested at Teterboro Airport on a flight on his private jet from France. So how is he getting around all these laws that, let's just say I had a felony, I would be denied entrance into many countries. If I was a registered sex offender, I would be denied entry into most countries, especially Europe and Asia. But here he is, registered sex offender, convicted felon, granted access, able to fly into every country around the world. Never a problem. How is that? Was he using his own passport or someone else? Well, they did find a Saudi passport from the early 80s under a German name in his safe. So that's interesting. No, an Austrian name because his nationality was Austrian, but he had a Saudi passport. Well, what that tells you right there, folks, is that he was working for fucking Israeli Mossad. Okay, probably working for a lot of people. But who was Wayne Williams working for? Was it just Jimmy Jen and thus Michael Davis? And he was just supplying black kids and black porn for a bunch of sicko elites in Atlanta and around the country. Because if he had been, think of it this way: if Wayne had been this kingpin of porn and basically a pimp, the king pimp, you've seen those movies, right? The king pimp from the '70s with that hat, you know, and that coat and that pink Cadillac, stretch Cadillac, driving around like that. He wouldn't be driving his dad old beat up station wagon, right? But whatever it was he was doing, it had him compelled to keep doing it because he spent a lot of fucking time on it. He wasn't making records. He wasn't putting together a group. I mean, again, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but I could put together a music group and a record album in 6 months. Okay. But anyway, how were my parents involved in the Atlanta child murders? I don't know. Were my parents involved in something? Not on the up and up. Probably. Now that I think about it, because just the way they ended, my mom very bitter and angry, and knowing and talking to me like, if you only knew what I had to go through to keep you alive, you would have been more appreciative and be more on my side. It was kind of her attitude. Okay. And how my mom spent her entire life trying to control everything and everybody and just push people away. And how my dad basically just lost his fucking mind at the end. Okay. I think it's very telling that this woman She took care of like 3 or 4 elderly people, and she had her children help her. And how my dad was screaming in the phone at me once and says, "You've got to come get me. They've got me here with these black kids, and they I can't eat the food. I don't know what they could be doing something to the food." And I was just blowing it off because I didn't know then what I know now. Like, Dad, come on, you're not going to poison your food. These kids are going to get back at me, and I'm like, get back at you? For what? What? You're just living there. I'm paying. The government and me are paying for you to be there. They're taking care of you, Dad. Stop being paranoid, stupid. He goes, no, they're gonna get me. I know it. They're gonna put something in my food. And I just blew it off. Like he's just, he's losing his mind, right? Now it makes sense. What did he do? What did my dad do that he made him lose his mind? I don't know. Maybe he didn't do anything. Maybe he was just fucking crazy. Maybe he was losing his fucking mind. When it comes down to it, I think that my mom was involved or kept trying to insert herself into a group of very powerful people in Atlanta that probably were involved in shady shit, like what Epstein and his people are involved in, but not that high up the food chain, just on a local level, okay? And was willing to do things to gain access to those power groups. She got me free. That thing's done, so let's move on and let's get rich. My mom was all about money, getting rich, and she never ever had any money. And see, that's how they get you. You got the people who have money and they blackmail them, and then you got the people who want money and they make them jump through hoops to do whatever. Go do this, go do that, take care of this, take care of that. What did what did they have to do? Again, I don't know. I could just be going to the worst parts of my mind right now and thinking stuff that's not there. But looking back and knowing what I know now and knowing what they said and knowing what they went through, my mom was near suicidal after Wayne Williams got caught. July to September, she was in the mental ward on depression medication, suicide watch. After Wayne Williams went to prison, my dad stopped drinking. My mom seemed to be getting better. She still had her problems every once in a while. Why? Why did Wayne Williams? Why was it so important for Wayne Williams to go to jail for them to get back to being normal? And then, what? Less than a year after Wayne Williams went to jail, my mom quit her job in Buckhead. Started doing nails, painting nails at home. She had clients at home while I was at school. But most of the time, she would travel with my dad on business around the country. Anyway, so let's look at these documents. So here we've got confidential security agency. It's got this PO box, but we know that it was right there off of Piedmont, right behind Ed Garland's office. Now the incorporation date, it says here is June 6, 1979, where they incorporated it. But we know that the business started right before the Omni opened up. So did they create confidential security just for the Omni? Confidential security also worked the Omni International. I think Barton was over there also. But isn't it interesting? June 6th, 1979, and what the first murders happened just a few weeks later. There's Mary Culbertson, Patrice Adams, Tom Hutchison. Now, Tom Hutchison is the main guy there. Um, I couldn't find anything on these two, but he had a real estate business or something, and he was a close associate with Ed Garland, Wayne Williams' attorney. All right, we're just going to go over as many of these as we can in the next 15 minutes. And I've just randomly went through these. So this is Garland Family Attorneys, 3151 Maple Drive. This is incorporated August 2000 or 1999. It was just you have to pay a registration fee every year to renew it. So Ed Garland's retired, but his son is taking over the firm now. Okay, they're doing the exact same things. Okay, and just to let you know that Ed Garland's dad was a guy named Reuben Garland who defended the Ku Klux Klan racist guys that blew up the Atlanta temple, the Jewish temple. He also defended Reuben Garland also defended J.B. Stoner. Remember J.B. Stoner, the racist guy of the what was that? The New Right, whatever that was, Nazi Ku Klux Klan guys. Here's another incorporation of the same thing. Um, Same thing again. Now this one is called Maple Drive Development. Okay, and same address, and they're just using the Maple Drive address there. And you see Ed Garland, and this is incorporated 1994. So just like Trump did, it's really, really simple what attorneys do, okay, for these mob guys and criminals. So if you're a criminal, you can't go out and buy property, okay, because the government will seize that as an asset, okay, and you'll lose your property. And but the best way to launder money is through real estate. And the best way how this is done, this is exactly what Trump's attorney Cohen would do, is they have these Russian oligarchs. They had all this money that they needed to launder, but they couldn't just bring it and put it in a bank in New York. So Cohen would incorporate him a business in the Cayman Islands, okay, like ABC Corporation or Cohen Land Development Corporation. And he'd have the silent partners would be the oligarchs. They would be the cash guys, the guys with the money. They would put it into this incorporation, and then Cohen would incorporate or start an LLC in New Jersey. And the major investor of that would be Cohen and this incorporation from the Cayman Islands. So you've got 1, 2 layers there. And they don't have to put down the names of the Russian oligarchs or anything like that. And then Cohen would use that LLC in New Jersey to buy real estate from Trump. Okay? So Trump would have a building worth $5 million. He would sell it to this LLC for $7 million. You can set real estate at whatever price you want to set it at, okay? And then they would set on it for a year or two or maybe 5 years, whatever. And then they would either sell it off to someone else sell it to another oligarch, they'd pass it around, or they would sell it back to Trump. Okay, but they would sell it to him for $6 million or $5 million, what it's really worth. But they would say, "Hey, we bought it for $7 million, so we lost $2 million, so we don't have to pay taxes for a while." It reduces your tax burden. So not only do you launder your money, you also reduce your taxes. Okay, and then boom, you've got your money is in the clear. So this is what Garland is doing on a low end. You got drug dealers, you got mobsters that want to come in and they want to buy property, real estate in Atlanta. But they can't come in and say Gambino Mobster Incorporated buying an apartment complex or buying a building. Okay. And you see all the time in these business listings that some corporation out of the Bahamas or some corporation out of the Cayman Islands or some corporation, that's 49% with Maple Drive Development as 51%, will come in and buy up some real estate in Atlanta and drive up the prices, especially around Buckhead. Okay, that's what they do. And for his services, okay, he charges a fee. They get to launder their money. He gets the fee, and it works really, really well. Okay, especially if they're getting rentals. Okay, like apartments. That's a guaranteed income stream coming in every month to Maple Development. Okay, so if you've got what is an apartment, let's just say $1,200 for a one bedroom, and you've got, let's say, 30 apartments. Okay, that's $36,000 right there a month coming in rentals. Well, if you've got an agreement to get 5%, that's $1,800. Well, that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you own 20 apartment complexes, okay, now you're getting $36,000 coming into your bank account at Maple Development, and all you had to do is sign some papers. Somebody else is running it, somebody else is doing the maintaining. All you're doing is putting your name out there for the LLC. That's a damn good deal. And if you're a drug dealer, you can take your drug, you sell your drugs in the street in South Atlanta, and you can put it into Maple Drive Development and buy more real estate. It's a good deal. All legal, all above board. Ed Garland's an expert at this. Okay? Let's see. Juana Lauren Harris. Now, this, I don't know who this person is, but Ed Garland was the attorney for the incorporation of this. You see, now, this is what Mary Welcome used to do. Okay, so Mary Welcome, she got out of law school in the late '60s. She Before she graduated from law school, she was clerking, okay, as an intern at Ed Garland's office, and up until the '70s. And then after she left that, she got a job. I believe she worked for the Attorney General of the Virgin Islands. You know where Epstein's thing is down there in the '70s, where there's a lot of drugs flowing through there. Okay, and she worked down there until 1974 when you know Thieves was going to go to prison, and he didn't want to leave all his businesses, his porn shops, to be taken over by his mobster competition. So he made a large political donation to Mayor Maynard Jackson, who got elected mayor and he appointed Mary Welcome as the Atlanta Solicitor General, and she spent the next 4 years going after every non-Gambino porn shop, bathhouse, and porn theater in Atlanta that wasn't owned by the Gambinos or Thieves. But after that, in '78, when Thieves gunned down Underhill and Gelante, Jackson, Maynard Jackson? Yeah, Maynard Jackson couldn't be seen taking money from Michael Thieves, the murderer, so he had to get rid of the clean house and he got rid of Mary Welcome. And then she went downtown and was working for Ed Garland at the incorporation section downtown for a couple of years. And then I think she ended up teaching at a law school downtown for Georgia State, where Wayne Williams had been going to college. And then she was the attorney for Wayne Williams. Isn't that amazing? So we've got U.S. Cathet Air. Okay? Robert Fryer. You remember Robert Fryer? He was the attorney for my mom in the divorce, or not the divorce, the child custody. He helped get custody for me, okay? He was also involved in the Wayne Williams defense trial. He was a good buddy of Axum and good buddy of Mary Welcome and Ed Garland. Let's see, we got 3 more minutes. I just went through the Secretary of State and started looking up names. Law offices of Robert Fryer. October 20th, 1978. His office was at 152 Nassau Street. If you look up 152 Nassau Street, it's literally a few blocks away from the Falcon Hotel where Nathaniel Cater was living at up until the day he died. Just literally around the block. I think it's where the white Ferris wheel is now, right? It's also right across the street from the Olympic Park. Okay. Let's see, what's another one here? They're all connected, folks. It's like a little team. They all know each other. They all go to the same fucking $100 a plate fucking lunches at Houlihan's. Okay? So don't be deceived by cute little Mary Welcome or righteous fucking constitutionalist Ed Garland. Here's another one. Robert Fryer. This may not be the same one. This may be his son. Oh, did you know that Axum also had a computer business registered at Omni International at the same time the kids were all disappearing? The computer business, folks. Axum. There's RGF Literary. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's some kind of publishing company. Oh, we're almost out of time. But there we go. We got Robert Fryer. Well, Edward Fryer, excuse me. And it's right there at 3151 Maple. So Fryer, okay, and Ed Garland were good buddies. They knew each other. All right. So that's enough for now. We're going to get into documents, more documents next time. All right. Take care. Hang in there, folks. Bye bye.